Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to MindShifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rahma. Michael is the author of Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
And the truth that is rooted within me. Hello and welcome to MindShifters Radio. Today I'm Carol Guy, and myself and Dr. Tim Hayes will be filling in for Michael and Jeanie today, and so we'd love to have you call in with any questions. Dr. Hayes has been doing this work of Michael's for many, many years, and we'll let him tell you a little bit more about himself as we continue. But you could call today at 646-200-4169. You can also visit Michael and Jeanie's website at whyagain.com. So thank you for joining us, everyone, and we will have Dr. Tim Hayes join us. Hello, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing quite well, Carol. Thank you. Thanks for all your work behind the scenes to make this presentation available. And
very well.
I look forward to hearing if anybody does call in and raise their hand or have questions. I may not be able to keep track of the chat room, so I'll let you do that.
That's okay. I'm here. I will take care of the chat room. So if people have questions in the chat room as well, they can please just type them in or send them here to me with a little icon of Earth Angels Radio, and I will get those questions to you in the chat room as well as our callers too. So, you've been doing this work for quite a few years of Dr. Michael Ryce. So can you tell us a little bit about you and how all of this process?
Okay, I'm a psychologist in Crystal Lake, Illinois, and in August I'll finish 37 years of doing therapy in various forms. And about 7 years ago, a friend of mine from high school sent me the audio tapes, the 4-hour audio CD of Dr. Ryce discussing Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And when I first heard those audios, it felt like coming home. It felt like what I'd been trying to teach people for 30 years in therapy. And it had some pieces that were missing from my work, basically the pieces which bring in the ancient Aramaic work of a man named Yeshua, who most of our culture calls Jesus, and some very practical tools. So I got very excited about it and started making copies of the audio CDs and distributing them because right on the audio CD it gave us permission to make copies and spread the work around. And I went to a School of Intuitive Arts and Sciences in a neighboring town and gave them a copy of the CDs. And they said, oh, we already know this work. As a matter of fact, Dr. David Hayes has just begun, or not Dr. David Hayes, but David Hayes has just begun a support group here. And so I reached out to David and I met him. And soon after that, he started traveling with Dr. Ryce and moving down to the Heartland Center. And I took over that support group, and that was 6 years ago this summer. So,
wonderful.
So one night a week I've been working with the group with these tools, and during the week in my practice, for anybody where it's appropriate, I use these tools, and I use them myself. So that's my exposure to this work.
That's wonderful, wonderful. So what is it you'd like to share with us today with this work?
Well, I would think that the key theme for today is one of the most difficult and a fundamental piece of this work is getting the discussion going around how could it possibly be that it's all an inside job? that everything I experience is a creation of me, of where I choose to focus my conscious awareness. And how is it then that I can make sense of that when I've been raised in a culture that says the opposite? And my entire life in this culture, I've been conditioned to think other people make me angry, other people offend me, other people insult me, other people hurt my feelings. And so that would be the theme, the discussion of how it is that it's all whatever I believe that's related to hostility or fear or any of the stepchildren of those two primary emotions is all smoke and mirrors, that it doesn't exist in actuality, but it only exists in my mind. How could that possibly be? And what do I do with that awareness once I begin to wake to that reality or that actuality? One of the primary stumbling blocks for most people is they immediately flip from that position to blame, to shame, to guilt. And if somebody truly wakes to the idea that they have created all of the emotional and psychological pain in their own life, or that they inherited it in their internal energy system from their bloodline, genetically, energetically, however you want to visualize that, they immediately flip over then into thinking, well, then I'm a bad person and I've wasted all of this time in my life. And so one of the biggest challenges is to get to that realization without flipping into more hostility and fear, more shame and blame. And in order to do that, we have to continually work to undo the conditioning that we were raised with that says blame is a good thing, anger is a good thing, shame is a good thing, guilt is a good thing. And layer by layer, as I question that, I open myself to the possibility of, well, if I'm responsible for this and there's no fault or blame to be had, what could possibly take its place? And that's difficult for us because the person that I feel I am defines himself from my past. And what I'm being asked to do with this work is open myself to something completely new that doesn't exist in the past, which means giving up any attachment or any identification with everything that I thought I was, everyone that I thought I was. So how do I do that? Well, bit by bit, and as Michael often says, all of the above, or he has a variety of tools for this. But one thing is to understand that the process of my work has to be internal because the cause of my experience is internal. And one of the stories that Michael likes to tell is a favorite of mine to share with people is, how do you understand the problem of mistaking a trigger as a cause for something happening? Well, let's imagine that there are a room full of doctors listening to a lecture from an internationally renowned neurosurgeon. And they absolutely love the lecture. It's going to be an hour lecture, and about 45 minutes into it, everybody is thrilled. They've already applauded several times. And then the lecturer decides to mention that before every surgery, she says a prayer. And within 2 minutes of her making that statement in the middle of her presentation, 5 people get up and leave the auditorium. I just happen to be in the lobby, and I interview all of them, and I ask them why they left, and they tell me they left because she infuriated them by mentioning God or religion in a scientific lecture. It has no place there, and they all intend to write letters, ask for their money back from the conference, etc. and they're all convinced that she made them angry and that she ruined the lecture for them. And when I tell this story, most people agree and say, yeah, that's obvious. What she said really made them angry. And I explain that's not possible, because if what she said, if her words are what made them angry, then all 100 people in the lecture would have gotten up and left. Furthermore, I stayed in that lobby and interviewed every single person as they left and found out that there were 20 more people who were upset by what she said, but they didn't want to miss the last 15 minutes of the lecture, so they stayed. And 10 of them were so angry that they're going to write a letter, and 10 of them don't really care enough to write a letter, but they were upset enough that they don't want to go to her lectures in the future. Oddly enough, 40 of the people that were in the audience absolutely loved what she said. They want to buy every book she ever writes, and they're going to write letters recommending her. And then 10 people don't remember hearing anything about God or prayer in the lecture. So how could it be that her words made these people angry or made these people love her or were completely missed by 10 of the people? It's because it's all an inside job. And if I think anybody or anything has ever made me angry, I have mistaken the trigger for the actual cause. So here's another example of mistaking the trigger for the cause, and Dr. Ryce uses this story as well. He says, let's take someone who knows nothing about any kind of machinery. They were raised in the jungles of South America and has never seen anything more complex than a dugout canoe. Put them in Chicago by one of the rivers where they have one of these giant drawbridges, and ask the person this person is a professional observer. You can't survive in the jungle unless you're expert at observing things. And ask that person to observe what makes bridges go up. And they sit there for a while, and after a while a boat comes by and the bridge goes up, and the boat leaves and the bridge goes down. And then after a while another boat comes by and the bridge goes up, and the boat leaves and the bridge goes down. And this keeps happening until finally my friend from the jungle calls me over and says, I've got it. I know what makes bridges go up. And I ask, what is that process? And he says, boats make the bridge go up. Well, the question is, can we see that boats are not the cause of the bridge going up? What causes a bridge to go up is if there's a person in the bridge house and they choose to flip a lever, it sets a circuit in motion, sending power to a motor, activating gears and pulleys, and counterbalances that lift the bridge. That's the cause of the bridge going up. The boat is simply a signal or a trigger that if the person in the boathouse is recognizing it, is paying attention, and if that person gets the proper clearance, then that person flips the relay that sends the power to the motor, etc. So now let's say that I tell this person from the Amazon of South America that I will give them and their entire village anything they want if they simply prevent that bridge from ever going up again. What does that person now have to do? Theoretically, that person has to change the direction of every boat in the Chicago area to make sure none of them ever approach that bridge. And then the question for us is, have I ever gotten tired of trying to change the behavior of everybody around me so that I don't have to be angry or sad or frustrated? Because that's chasing the trigger instead of focusing energy on the cause. When people do things that I don't like, they aren't causing me to be sad or angry or feel offended. It's triggering sadness, anger, or offense that I had in me walking into that situation. So that's what we're going to begin with. And the call-in number, if you have any questions or comments, is 646-200-4169. 646-200-4169. Carol, do we have anybody on the phone or any questions in the chat room?
Not yet, but I have something. I love the analogy that you used about the boat, because, if people that's what so many people do. They're wasting so much energy trying to change the outside of things instead of looking at the inside and realizing that it's not as dark and as fearful as of changing that trigger, changing that feeling or that what's going on in the inside than it is trying to chase the boats, and change things on the outside of them. I think that is a great way to really get the point across, because being here in Florida, I live on the right by the ocean, so we have the intercoastal here everywhere. And so the bridges are constantly going up, and they just went up because of a boat came by. There'd be people falling off the bridge. And so then we'd have more chaos and more problems instead of trying to truly see what's going on behind the scenes here.
So you make a good point. You may not even realize you've made it, but if the world actually worked the way that we fantasize that it works, if the thing that is triggering my anger was actually causing my anger, then that would make me a victim.
Right.
I would be at the mercy of everything that happens around me and every person who doesn't like me, etc. And furthermore, chaos would rule everywhere. And I think that probably the reason chaos hasn't completely overridden our life on the planet is because there is a core of people who focus on the understanding of cause and cause law and holding that space of love in spite of the potential triggers that exist in the people and situations around them.
Absolutely.
If we didn't have that, we never would have seen anyone like Yeshua or Gandhi or Krishnamurti or Meher Baba or any of these other great spiritual teachers, many of whom are unnamed because they've never been chasing the limelight, and they're not trying to get, the true spiritual teachers in our time are not trying to gather followers. The true spiritual teachers for all time are not trying to start a movement. They're simply trying to work on themselves and the causes in themselves which initiate their feeling anything less than love.
Absolutely, because that's exactly where it starts. And you're so right. None of them, not even Jesus, was there to gain followers. He was there to share the wisdom, but he had to do the work himself as well. He had to do the work and learn about all of this, just like everyone else. And then there is some people that are meant to go out in the world and help others, not to gain followers, but to help others to reclaim who they truly are.
And his way of doing that was by modeling, not lecturing. He told stories, which we called parables, which means to teach with a parallel meaning, but he didn't create a church, contrary to what many people believe. I'm holding in my hands a book that's titled Jesus Was Not a Christian. And the subtitle is Discovering the Jesus Who Was Replaced by Theology. And the author is Jim Stacey, S-T-A-C-E-Y. And the point that's made over and over again by all of the great teachers and books that truly try to examine the lives of the great teachers is it's an inside job, and I'm here to do my work. And if you see me doing my work, and that strikes a chord that resonates an energy in you, that's fabulous. But I'm not here to change you. I'm here to change everything that's less than love in my mind-body energy system, since that's the only thing I have any control over. And if you study the great teachers, including Yeshua, who we call Jesus, he said, your faith has healed you. Not, I healed you. He said things like, I myself do nothing. The Father within me does all things. So Dr. Ryce, in the 4-hour audio that I listened to originally, he talks about how for these new concepts that are going to challenge our old belief systems, in order for us to truly integrate a knowledge that's new, we need to have multiple repetitions of the work, and wherever possible, the more different angles or perspectives or ways of looking at it that we can expose ourselves to, the faster we will learn and integrate the material. So that's why I keep looking for books like the one I'm holding, which says, Jesus was not a Christian. And in Dr. Ryce's work, Dr. Ryce talks about holding the space of love for someone and choosing to practice humility from the ancient Aramaic definition of humility. And this has nothing to do with putting myself down or groveling in the dirt or thinking other people are better than me. The ancient Aramaic definition for humility is my ability to see the highest and best in another person and then choose to cooperate only with that.
Absolutely.
And what that means is, even if someone is charging at me, raging, or standing in front of me screaming, I do not have to respond from fear or with fear, from anger or with anger. That is simply a trigger. And if I hold the space of love in me and I choose to focus on what causes my feelings and emotions, I can choose to look at that person who's screaming in pain or raging in anger or blaming me or spreading gossip and slander, and I can choose to see the face of Christ in that person and hold a space of love for them and for me. And that's the
Absolutely.
way Dr. Ryce talks about this. Well, Jim Stacy in his book has something else to say, and I want to read a little bit of this.
Okay.
Hopefully,
I do want to let you know there is a caller online, too. So.
All right, we'll get to that in just a minute.
Okay.
Here's what Jim Stacy says. He says, to practice turning the other cheek is to give the other person space to be human. This means I give the other person space to make a mistake, maybe even more than once, and not hold them guilty and not punish them. It's to absorb with love or deflect by refusing to focus on any injury, any hurt, and instead to see the divine in another person as bigger than that what is not in sync. So I can see the anger in another person, but choose to see the highest and best in them. Here, in Jim Stacy's words, I can choose to see the divine in the other person. And by doing so, I make space within myself for the other person's healing. I cut them some slack, and I embody patience with one who is in the human process of growing, healing, maturing, and hopefully learning to transform their shadows. So, to my ears and my way of thinking about it, Jim Stacy's talking about exactly the same thing as Dr. Ryce talks about when he says, practicing humility and choosing to see the highest and best in the other person and cooperating only with that, and then holding a space of love regardless of what I see as energies of anger or fear in that person or in me. And that's the process of healing, and that's what Michael Ryce calls being in process. All right, the call-in number is 646-200-4169. And, Carol, you say we have a caller.
Yes, we have area code 423. You're on the air. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Deborah.
Hello, Deborah.
Deborah?
Thanks for calling. Where are you calling from?
Tennessee.
Welcome. How can we support you today?
Well, I have been looking forward to 2 o'clock all day, but I was expecting to hear Michael and Jeanie. I don't want to reveal too much, but we are related.
Okay. How can we help you today?
Then you're in a fabulous bloodline.
Hi, sir?
Then you're in a fabulous bloodline.
Yes, I am. I
Yes,
know
you
I
are.
am. And I have listened to Michael's show, and I have heard so many people that have so many problems that I can't wrap my mind around them. You know, I just do not understand. But it's not for me to understand. But then I deal with my own issues. But I've got to breathe. Just a minute. Shua. See? Jeanie taught me how to breathe.
Take your time. Take your time. Just breathe.
But, you know, things come up on you every now and then, and I always felt like life was slapping me in the face, and it was like, God, how big do you think my shoulders are? I can't take any more. I can't do it. And it's like, girl, I have been trying to teach you your whole life that you do not have to have big shoulders. It's me. Give it to me. Give it to me. Because I know that I cannot control anything except for myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, go ahead, Carol.
No, I was just going to say it's a blessing when we don't wrap our minds around what other people are doing because we don't want to give it the energy and focus. And it's actually a very good blessing that, our minds are not there because that's what gets in the way of our healing and other people's healing. It's getting into the heart of things and allowing that love to flow.
Well, I've got a lot of love. I come from a big, strong, loving family.
It's beautiful.
And I'm blessed. I am very blessed, and I know that. And just,
Dr. Hayes, you were going to mention something?
I was just going to ask if there was something specific we could support you in releasing or processing today. Is it Deborah?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm having a little difficult situation with my daughter, but I know that it is beyond my control. It's not just my daughter. I have 4 granddaughters involved. But I can't control it. I did not create the situation that they are in.
And so have you done any worksheets on what your part of this process is?
I am trying to.
Okay. Are you stuck on a certain point that we can help you with to understand that part of the worksheet, or do you have a specific question related to where you're stuck?
Well, I lost my mother about 3 weeks ago, so now I'm stuck. I'm just like mired up, you know.
Maybe I can help in this, Dr. Hayes. I have a daughter with granddaughters as well, and the situation has not been the greatest, and I had to learn to heal that within myself and to let go. I, too, lost my mother a couple of months ago, and so I know the situation, how you're feeling, but what you have to do is you have to take some time to be gentle with yourself, to allow those feelings to come forward and breathe through them and do the worksheets that Dr. Ryce has presented there for you. And as you do this, work on the healing. So continue to focus on healing yourself, healing and allowing the emotions come up with your mother, with your daughter, with your grandchildren. And as each one comes up, do a worksheet on. And as you do this, just take one at a time, one feeling at a time, instead of trying to conquer them all at once. And as you move through this process with the worksheets and the allowance of healing each one of those feelings that's coming up for you, then you will be able to move forward. Because I have been able to move forward with all of this situation, and so I'm fully in awareness of what you're going through right now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Does that help?
I'm still breathing.
Good. That's the best place to be. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so
thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like
Deborah?
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So,
okay.
Call-in number is 646-200-4169. And, Carol, do we have any other callers or anything else in the chat room?
Not at this moment.
All right. Well, let me just comment. Maybe Deborah is still listening. In the support group on Tuesday, we had a similar question come up. And the question related to, what do I do when I'm witnessing someone who is doing something that leads to pain or suffering from someone else? And in this case, the person was talking about someone who is a bully. And the group member knows how to do worksheets and has done worksheets around her anger, her frustration, her fear in response to the bully. And she felt as though she had done all of her work on that, but then she brought the question to the group. But now, so what do I do about this bully? And the answer, of course, is she can't do anything about the bully unless she's in a position to physically stop the bully from hurting someone. But what she can do is, instead of viewing the person as a bully, she can view the person through the lens of humility and look at that person and see the face of Christ, and she can see everything that comes from that person in terms of words and actions as either an expression of love or a cry for help and healing. And the next thing we offered from the group, the members suggested, is she can step into supporting the people who are feeling fear or anger or pain as a result of the actions that the bully has perpetrated, which have then triggered fear or anger or pain in the people who are viewing themselves as a victim. And we all know, if we listen to Michael and you listen to the great teachers, there are no victims, only volunteers. If the cause of my feelings is internal and I'm feeling pain, it isn't caused by the bully. it may have gotten triggered by what the bully did. So, another book that we've talked about here and that Michael has mentioned several times and given quotes from is The Gentle Art of Blessing. And this is another thing I would offer you, Deborah, if you're still listening, is to get a hold of that book and read and practice sending blessing to your daughter, to your granddaughters, and to yourself in the situation where you're feeling the sadness and you're feeling the emptiness and loss from losing your mother, and you're feeling anything that's less than love or other than love when you're watching your daughter and the interactions with your granddaughters. And it's a very good book and a set of steps you can use to start to presence the active awareness of love, as Michael talks about, to hold love conscious, active, and present every time you think about your mother who's no longer with you physically, but definitely there in spirit, your daughter, and your grandchildren. And The Gentle Art of Blessing is a wonderful book with some very good stories, but more than that, some simple steps to take to help me choose the focus of my conscious awareness so that I reinforce the energy of love, of patience, of compassion within anyone that I'm thinking of, or within the energy of anyone I'm in the presence of. And I can choose to do that and hold that space of love, even if they are in the space where they believe their anger is real, their fear is real, their pain is real. So I would offer that's, aside from the worksheets, moving to that space of blessing these people for their patience, for their compassion, for their intelligence, for their good decision-making, even if what you're seeing in the present moment looks to you like impatience and poor decision-making. That's a very powerful tool. And it's an active way to hold the space of love for these people and see them as a part of the divine. And that has a power to calm and soothe me, at the same time adding a loving energy to whatever I see going on around me. And I hope that helps, Deborah, and I thank you for the call. It's a very important set of issues that we all struggle with. You happen to be dealing with it at a very intense level right now because you've just lost your mother and because of the issues that you've described very briefly about what are going on with your grandchildren. But thank you for the call. And Carol, I'll ask, is there anything
No, not at this moment.
In the chat room or a phone call?
No, not at this moment. So if anybody would like to call in, the number is 646-200-4169, or if you have a question in the chat room, please feel free to put it in there, and we will get this to Dr. Hayes.
All right, thank you. Well, we're talking about how everything that I experience is an inside job. And one of the things that is so difficult for me to understand is I've been trained, I've been conditioned, I've been raised in a world that's focused almost exclusively on the external physical realm of existence. And it's not a coincidence that that's what the culture conditions me to. Because if the culture can get me to believe that what's really important in my life is my physical body and my physical possessions and my physical interactions with other people and things, then the culture has things to use to control me. So, for example, if you think about having your ability to be aware of yourself, this is one of the things that makes a human being different from all of the other animals that we're aware of. The technical word for human beings these days is Homo sapien sapien. And that means one who knows and knows that he knows. Now, what does that mean? Well, a lion out on the plains in Africa knows what his surroundings are. He knows if another lion is close. He knows where there's water. He knows where there's prey. He knows what other animals are around that are no threat to him and what other animals are around that he might want to eat. So the lion knows a lot. But the lion doesn't have that ability to step back and know that he knows, to have an awareness of himself, watching himself doing things. The lion doesn't have a mind that's divided against itself. So you can bet that when the lion goes after a prey and makes a misstep and the animal gets away, the lion isn't slinking back to his den saying, "Oh, that was so stupid. Oh, I'm just the worst hunter ever. Oh, I can't believe it. Oh, I'm never going to get anything to eat. You know, my mom was right. I'm just no good." The lion doesn't do that. The lion doesn't have that capacity. Well, in this case, that's a blessing, because all of the energy I spend criticizing myself, beating myself up, talking to myself about my mistakes, projecting into the future about how I'm probably going to make a mistake the next time, is wasted energy. And it's a drain on my system, which makes me less effective and efficient in the moment. The lion doesn't have to worry about that. The human being, on the other hand, has been conditioned to evaluate, talk to himself, constantly be in fear of what's coming in the future, and angry or upset about what has gone on in the past. Guy Finley talks about it as saying, there are 3 important things to know. The first thing is real life is new. It's always changing. It's not about the past. It's not about the future. It's about the present moment. It's absolutely new and fresh in each moment. The next point is all psychological and emotional pain is the result of my giving life to something in myself that wants to go on living after the fact. All of my pain psychologically is about the past. And if I give life to the energy, to the thoughts about my past, it will cause me pain in the moment, in the present moment. It will cause me to feel the anger, the resentment, the hurt. All psychological fear is about the future. And just look at this for yourselves. Do you feel fear about anything in your past? Is it possible to feel fear about something in your past? I would offer it's not possible, because you've already had the proof that you lived through it, because here you are remembering it. So the only thing that's possible is for me to have frustration or anger about the past, and it's not possible for me to have fear about the past, but all of my fear is about what might happen in the future. If something is actually happening in the present moment, I don't have fear about it. I'm either responding to it with a reflex, with a protective mechanism physically, or with that presence of love, or I've already moved it into something and imagined that it's already happened, or I'm projecting whether or not it may continue into the next moment and being afraid that it might keep coming. So real life is new. And all of my psychological and emotional pain is the result of me granting life to a part of me that wants to go on living after the fact. And this is what Michael talks about as living in the past, going back to my carbon-based memory and the dissociated mind, which keeps triggering thoughts, feelings, and impulses to action that are from the past. And the last piece is that since real life is new and all of my emotional and psychological pain comes from granting life to something in me that wants to go on living after the fact, and the last piece is I am always where I want to be. Now, that seems to be an absolute disconnect for most people, but we're talking about my internal location. I am internally where I choose to be in every moment. I have the infinite capacity to choose the focus for my conscious awareness. So, for instance, right now, I could choose to think about my father who has died and focus on how much I miss him and how I have big problems coming up that I wish I had his advice and support for. Or I could choose to focus my awareness on all of the wonderful memories I have from my father, all of the life skills and lessons I learned from watching him live his life to the best of his ability, and then immediately choose to bring the focus of that attention, my attention, back to the present moment and integrate the learnings I have from my father. But I am always, psychologically, mentally, emotionally speaking, I am always where I am choosing to be. And this is never more true than after you've been exposed to tools like Dr. Michael Ryce teaches. And bless his heart, he and Jeanie make these tools available to everyone free, and you can go to the website at www.whyagain.com, and on the right-hand side, there's a link that says Download Worksheets. Click on that link, go to that first page, and download the first two links. The first one is the new chapter 24 of his book, which explains step-by-step the why and how of the worksheet process. And the link below that is the 7-step reality management worksheet process. And the reality management worksheet process is what some people call a forgiveness worksheet. But the forgiveness process from the ancient Aramaic has nothing to do with pardoning another person or letting them off the hook because they bullied me or letting them off the hook because they stole some money from me or they called me a dirty name. Forgiveness from the ancient Aramaic means a tool for canceling and dismantling a false reality in my mind. And here the reality is defined as my construct of reality. I've taken events from the outside that have triggered me, and within my mind, I've created my sense of what happened. And anytime I do that, and I feel a sense of hostility or fear, I have a false reality I've created. So please, take advantage of what Michael is offering. Go to the website, download the instructions and the worksheet process, and prove to yourself that you can choose the conscious focus of your awareness in each moment, and that you can choose to focus that awareness on your source as love. Carol, do we have any questions and comments in the chat room or anybody on the phone?
Well, no question. Yeah, there is questions here, lots of them, and we've got about 10 minutes. A lady in the chat room has been talking about she's been working on the loss of a relationship for about 10 months now. She's not done any worksheets, but she's been talking about this, so maybe you can help with that. And we do have 2 callers. So which one would you like to do first?
Well, let's see who the callers are. We can always ask the woman in the chat room who hasn't done any worksheets to go do some of those and then call if she has any questions. That's why the show is on 5 days a week, and I'm very glad to hear that she's going to take a look at the worksheets. But who do we have calling in?
We have area code 607. You're on the air. What's your name?
It's Richard in Ithaca.
Hello, Richard. Nice to hear your voice again.
How are you guys?
Doing well, thank you. This is Dr. Tim. Michael and Jeanie are traveling today.
Well, I just wanted to comment on what you've been talking about because I had that situation come up for me about a couple of years ago. I had this situation, an encounter with some, I don't know. Anyway, I guess it was regarding I had just bought this property. I don't want to get into the story too much, but basically, I felt betrayed because I had entrusted my, I had talked to the code officer. And he agreed. I felt that he was going to work with me. In the end, when I started doing something, he ended up bringing the police out and having them stop the work, forcibly, and in this scene that I really don't like, it brought up a lot of anger and frustration within me. Well, yesterday I was out at the property and I was planning on doing something. I had somebody come out and look at it, and they said, well, you should probably go to get a building thing and all that permit and all that. And I said, okay. So I got in my car and I started driving to the place to get a building permit, and I could feel this, hurt in my gut, and I was like, okay, I'm focusing on this. Still haven't let this go. I'm still feeling it in my gut, this thing that happened 2 years ago, And, just the image of going and having to be there just, created this feeling in me. Again, the idea that I'm blaming that situation for creating the feeling in me, but in reality it was me creating the feeling, the image of the past. And I get to the place, and they were closed. So that's the whole irony of the whole thing is they weren't even there open to create the feeling. I was creating the feeling totally myself. I'm assuming it's making sense to you what I'm saying.
Absolutely, and we all do exactly the same thing in every situation, whether we realize it or not. And that's the goal of this work, is to retrain my mind to focus on the inside where I'm creating all of my thoughts and feelings, rather than being distracted by the conditioning of the trigger and the conscious focus of the culture that wants me to look outside so I can get distracted so it can control me.
Right.
And that's our work.
Right. In the end, it's sort of ironic because that had triggered in me. Then there were some other situations come up that also triggered some stuff in me where I wanted to, I had to really. It took me half a day of worksheets and stuff to get out of that state, back into a loving state again, where I could deal with the things coming up for me in a loving manner instead of in a fearful whatever place. So. I had three things happen that day. The second one brought up some stuff for me again, where I wanted to focus on what they were doing rather than what was going on inside of me. And then finally, I did my worksheets, and then finally at the end of the day, another situation came up, but I had a totally different perspective on. I was able to go be there and just be in a loving manner and not blame or put blame on anything, and it worked out perfect. So,
well, congratulations.
I just want to, again, to express the value of Michael's worksheets, and again, the process, and I value the process as well. It's a way of getting this stuff up and out of our system so that we can truly live in a state of love. Thank you very much.
Let me just congratulate you for your work in applying the tool, because the tool, no matter how good it is, can't have a positive effect on you unless you pick it up and use it. So
right.
Congratulations to you for taking charge of that part of your mind that was causing the pain and fear and resentment and bitterness and dismantling it. And thanks for calling in and sharing how the tools have been effective for you. That's what we love to hear.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
You know, Dr. Tim, what a blessing this is. You know, if we could learn to see that when these feelings come up, this is that the person that triggered us or the situation that triggered us was such a blessing because it's showing us to get this stuff out of us, to get it out of us, and it's triggering us to, and it's those are the blessings. Those are the real blessings that, because those are signs of love to get that stuff that's not needed in there anymore, so we can carry and hold that vibration state of that pure divine love.
Absolutely. I have to agree that if you have the tools and if you have the perspective that allows you to see it, then it can be a blessing. Absolutely. Do we have another caller?
Right. No. The other one hung up. So we have about a little over 3 minutes left.
Okay. So, and was there anything in the chat room we needed to address quickly?
She was just talking about her relationship, and she's going to look at the worksheets. And I just responded that, you know, that Michael and Jeanie will be here every Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you get the worksheets and you're having a difficult time understanding them or not being able to complete them, that they are here for you to call in or ask questions to get the help and support. And you are here as well with them quite often, as I know. And so that, you know, that's the greatest thing, is that having the support that you need.
Well, so, all right, and let me just say that I had another person I was working with today who gave a wonderful testimonial to this work. He's about 30 years old, and when he was 19, there was a traumatic event, and he started coming to me just a couple of months ago and learned something about the tools, the Michael Ryce Reality Management Worksheet, and the MindShifter targeted journaling process, and the breathing. And he came in today and talked about a problem he was having. And as we discussed it, he was able to see how, even though it's been a problem for him this past week, it's nowhere near as intense or pervasive as it has been for the last 11 years. And he can see that even though it's not completely gone, and even though he can still be triggered to anger or fear when these situations arise, he spends many more days happier and in a more relaxed state than even he did 3 months ago. And again, just like Richard, I have to applaud him for actually applying the tools.
Absolutely.
Actually doing the worksheets, setting the time aside to do the breathing, and understanding that it's an inside job. I was created as the source of love. I was created to be, as every newborn infant is, the manifestation of love. I am the effect of love in form. And the more I focus my awareness on that, the more I get to experience my nature as love. And that's what this work is about, learning to identify every instance of hostility or fear or shame or blame, any negative emotion that comes up in me, and having the tools to dismantle it, being able to restore my focus of my conscious awareness to my true nature as an extension of love in form.
Very
so
good.
I know we
thank you so much.
Very few seconds
left. We're just
on
a few seconds.
Thank you, Carol, and let's have everybody have the best year yet of your eternal life, and feel free to join Michael tomorrow and bring a friend. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, and thank you, everyone, and many blessings. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to MindShifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie, who present the internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.